Welcome to the AI Chat Podcast. I'm your host, Jaden Schaefer. Today on the podcast, we have the pleasure of being joined with Emmanuel Acheampong, who is a co-founder and CEO of roboMUA, which is an innovative AI solutions company with a visionary focus on catering to all skin shades. So at roboMUA, the mission is to revolutionize industries by building custom AI algorithms that excel in skin recognition, analysis, matching, and more. So this allowed the team to win the Technology of the Year at the 2023 Smart Retail Tech Conference. He enjoys teaching people about the AI field and has taught project courses on AI models on Coursera and other places. Really just an expert in this whole area. Welcome to the podcast today, Emmanuel.
Thank you for having me, Jaden. Really appreciate it. I'm excited to be here.
Excited to have you. Like I said, I'd love to kind of kick this thing off by asking you if you can tell us a little bit about your journey, what, brought you to being a co-founder and, the CEO of this company. What kind of brought you to founding this?
Yeah, so I had a more traditional path. I did computer science and mathematics in my undergrad. So I went to undergrad in Kentucky, a school called Berea College. And during that, I had an internship with a startup founder in New York. And they were, at the time, for a lot of CS students, they were like, hey, you should get into software engineering. But my mentor was like, hey, this thing called AI is going to blow up in a few years, right? So I think you should get into it.
Have you ever wanted to start your own podcast? I record and publish podcasts on a platform called Spotify for Podcasters, and I absolutely love it. Essentially, you can upload from your phone or computer, and it distributes to every platform that plays podcasts. They support video podcasts, and you can make money on the platform with ads or even podcast subscriptions, something that has made my life so much easier as a podcaster. So if you're interested, I highly recommend you give it a try. You can download the Spotify for Podcast app, or go to spotify.com/podcasters to get started on your podcast today.
This episode is brought to you by Kia's first 3-row, all-electric SUV, the Kia EV9, with available all-wheel drive and seating for up to 7 adults, with 0 to 60 speed that thrills you 1 minute and available lounge seats that unwind you the next. Visit kia.com/EV9 to learn more. Ask your Kia dealer for availability. No system, no matter how advanced, can compensate for all driver error and or driving conditions. Always drive safely.
And with your math background, you'd be a perfect fit for it. So all the projects I worked on that summer was related to like data science and ML stuff. And I started online courses. So I took a ton of online courses because AI wasn't as huge as it is now, right? Back in 2016, 2017. So I took a ton of online courses on Coursera. I was taking every course from Andrew Ang to, the Stanford machine learning course. I took over 100 courses. And that eventually led me to being able to build my own projects, right? So it's like I moved from just studying AI. I'm like, okay, I can see a problem, frame it in an AI perspective, and build a project on that. So that is how the ability to build things in that space came about. But after that, I was able to identify various problems in, around my community, right? Like I had a friend who was into makeup who really had a hard time finding the perfect makeup shade for herself. She would do a lot of trial and error, buy a ton of products, and then have to throw a ton of stuff out. And I was like, this is a computer vision problem, right? So totally try to build a few proof of concept that would work for you. And now she loved this so much. She started telling all her friends to try it out, and they loved it. So at the beginning, it got 5 skin shades, and gradually, as the interest in it kept growing, eventually decided to build it after attending Notre Dame for my master's. But I did my thesis on the intersection of AI and directed energy weapons, which is like laser.
Oh, interesting.
Okay, this could be something. So let's expand on that. So with me and my co-founders, we're able to spread this thing and see how it goes. So that's the short version of the journey.
So cool. Super, super cool. Okay, so fascinating background. Tell us, so you mentioned a little bit about the co-founders and stuff, but really walk us through, what did that look like when you guys started this company? How did you find your co-founders? What was the conversation? And what really kind of got this thing kicked off?
Yeah, so luckily for me, most of my co-founders, I had known them for years. We went to the same college. They were all top in their classes, so it was easy to transition. And the conversation, again, started from, hey, I can build this proof of concept for my friend who loves it and share with their friends. This could be something. But I think really going to Notre Dame and being exposed to the entrepreneurial space in in my graduate program, how it was very, very encouraging of an entrepreneurial journey. That's what really helped push us into the limelight. So honestly, if I hadn't gone to Notre Dame and been involved in the Idea Center, which is the entrepreneurial venture school, I wouldn't have known a lot of things. So I got exposed to a lot of things, right? How the legal setups work, how to engage with VCs, all those things we're able to have access to that. So that is what really catapulted us into the next phase.
That's amazing. Yeah, and totally understand that. I studied marketing. That was kind of my background.
Nice.
Before kind of getting into software and AI. It's funny. I'm not a technical founder. I definitely should get more into that. But it's interesting because for me, same thing. I went and studied entrepreneurship at my college. They had an entrepreneurship center, and it was just so eye-opening to me.
Yeah.
Meet people, and it literally that's what got me my first investors on my first software startup and kind of moved my whole trajectory, my career along was 100% some of those resources. So I hear a lot of people talk about you don't need college, just learn on YouTube and go build your thing. And I'm like there is some serious value to the network, to the perspectives, to all of that. And I mean, even for you, having solid mentors, which has been huge for me, but that steered you in the direction of AI to begin with. I mean, I wish I had a mentor that had told me to go into AI 5 years ago, but that's fine, whatever. So tell me, when you guys first got this kicked off, what were your first steps? Did you go raise venture funding at the beginning? I know you had a proof of concept because you've been building this for your friend. What were kind of your first steps?
Yeah, so we didn't do any venture raising, and it was very intentional because, again, a lot of times I was super technical to build it. The team around me could get things done. So it wasn't we needed to raise money to build this idea. The idea work in it was in progress, right, at this point. So we didn't really raise one. I think later on we might, but it's never really been a blocker for us, right? It was very we build as much as we can without needing external help. So we get to the point where if we do need external help, it will only mean we just wanted to scale or accelerate our scaling much faster. But for now, not really. We didn't really need to raise funds because the technical talent was there. Talent to do the marketing whole is there. So it wasn't and we were a bit cash flow positive, so we could make things work on our own without needing external funds. It will eventually come, but for now, I think we're good.
Okay. Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. So you launched this product. Talk to me about today, where it's at, and the number one problem it's solving for customers, and who is using this. I know this thing's growing. It's quite impressive, but tell everyone about it.
Yeah, so most of our main customers are B2B clients who are trying to get the users to find the right shade. So an example of the customer we've had is called Nude Bar. Yeah, it's shapewear company. So think of shapewear like Kim Kardashian's skins. So for shapewear, it has to match your skin shade, right? You have to return it. And this is an online business, right? So it's not people are going in and trying things on. You have seen it online, buying it online. And if it doesn't fit, they have to return it, right? So we integrate our algorithm to them so that users can just take a picture of, their bodies or their patch of skin and find the right shade of the product so they don't have to return it, right? So, and for shapewear, unlike other fashion articles, if people return it, you have to destroy it. You can't repurpose it when people return that stuff. So using the algorithm, they're able to reduce, the amount of returns that they had, which was a plus. So those are the main customers. We do have a mobile app, but it's mostly for testing and trying things out. We're still making sure the direct to consumer part is viable as well. But most of our customers and our clients are B2B, direct to business. So another example is a company called Find My Nude Shade. There's also an online business where people can find the various makeup products, various fashion products based on this. So those are the people we actually are our main customers. Right? But for the direct to consumer, we're still working the kinks out of it.
That's super cool. Yeah, and I'm sure I'm excited to see where that goes when the D2C comes out too. But talk to me about how with the B2B side of things, how did you find these first customers? Was this just cold outreach? Did you know someone that gave you an intro? Like, what did that?
Yeah. So for the very first few customers, it was mainly intros because people had seen like the things I would post on LinkedIn, like because I would share progress of the company online, and they were making those first introductions. But I think now there's a couple of like cold outreaches that has been very kind of successful because people need this technology, right? Like the beauty space, not like, fintech where there's a ton of startups. They need the technology. They are trying to find the technology, but they don't know where to find it. So that cold outreach is what's been working for us currently. But at the very beginning, those like warm introductions because, hey, I've seen you share this particular product on social media. I think you'll be a good fit for this other business. So let me introduce. That was the way we got our foot in.
That's so cool. I love that you leveraged LinkedIn. The whole building in public is such a powerful strategy. So, big kudos to you. Something I would love to ask you about is like, how did you kind of go about building your data set with 100 skin shades? And like, what challenges did you face while you were going about doing that?
So the main challenge was there was no really like data set of that, right? Like, no publicly available data set. So again, with the proof of concept, I've always built our own data from the beginning, right? So the first thing we did was to use like celebrities and then work with an esthetician to be like, okay, what does this celebrity skin look like, right? Like, so again, for the proof of concept, there were 5 skin shades. So these 5 skin shades, which celebrities have these 5 skin shades, right? Then scrape the internet for like the images of those celebrities with those skin shades. But as we grew, we had to build a more robust data pipeline system. So that has evolved a little bit, but at the beginning, it was like, hey, these are 5 skin shades for the proof of concept. Let's get data sets of celebrities who look, who have these 5 skin shades, which was porcelain, fair skin, olive skin, medium skin, and dark skin, right? And then build the proof of concepts around that.
That's super cool. So talk to me about, I don't know if this is something that plays into this, and I would just be curious to hear your thoughts. So something I've been hearing a lot about in the AI space from different people, when there is not a data set that exists, a lot of people are like creating synthetic data sets. So like Amazon, for example, I think it was called Palm One, I believe, but essentially when you go into the Amazon Go stores, instead of having to scan your phone, they want you to just be able to scan your handprint. And they'll just, everyone's palm is different. So we'll just look at your palm and that's how it like connects your account, charges you when you grab stuff. The problem they had when they did this was there is no data set of like people's palms. It just doesn't exist. So what they actually did was created a data set of like 1 million synthetic palms. So they used something like Midjourney or whatever, an image generator to generate palms. They trained it off of that. And then it was able to identify like real, actual human palms from the synthetic data. I'm wondering for what you guys are doing or have done, is that like a possibility?
Yeah.
Not playing the role.
We obviously have to use synthetic data, right? Like, so 100 skin shades, like if you Google right now, hey, dark skin with like red undertones, the data will be very few, right? Like it's very limited. So we do have to add a generative component to it. But at the beginning, we didn't really have that.
Right.
Yeah, but that was like 2019, 2020. So we didn't really have that. But now we are able to like grow the data. So I think we are trying to move from a data set of 1 million images, trying to get to 10 million. We do have to some of those images, right? We can't have purely like scraped images of 10 million. So there is an element of generative AI as part of it.
Okay. Yeah, that's super cool. I was wondering about that because it's actually really fascinating, the fact that in order to train AI, we can use generative AI to create the data set. It's like such a cool, like, it feels like it shouldn't work, it's like you can't generate something with AI to train something to use something in real life, but it's super, super cool.
So I actually made a comment on that on LinkedIn about how I think there's going to be an inflection point where the amount of data trained on these models would mostly be the generative AI, right? Like the generative AI data would exceed the internet data that we've been training models with. And I don't know what would happen then, but yeah, that was like really cool observation.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Okay, so talk to me. I know like it's hard to predict this stuff, but talk to me. What's your thinking, right? Like, let's say everything is synthetic. We've talked about the concept, or like people talk about the concept with like text where you have model collapse, right? Where like the data generated from like ChatGPT, if you use ChatGPT's output to train, then it like kind of gets corrupted and bad, whatever, right?
Yeah.
Do we see the same thing with images and also like video where we're going? Like what are the implications of the, all this data being generative AI that we're training stuff on?
So I don't know about the implications of the generative AI part, but what I will say is that, the model drift in computer vision is real, right? Like, the users will be like, hey, your model was giving me good recommendations, but then it slowly. So we have to keep an eye out. So one thing we have been doing to combat is we have to actually refresh the model multiple times. So reality is the more people use the model, the quicker the model degrades, right? So refreshing the model multiple times, it's something that we learned as part of the process. We didn't know this at the beginning, right? Because like if you're learning about AI, you gotta build a model, you deploy it, and that's it. But no, it's like no, you gotta keep an eye out, see when the model starts grading. So that happens a lot. So refreshing the model is like we've automated that pipeline where we are consistently training the data, consistently refreshing the model APIs in production. So that's how we've been trying to combat it. But you're absolutely right. Yeah. But in terms of how like generative AI, I think is yet to be seen, right?
I know, yeah.
I'm very curious. I know that what happens, right? Like
TIAA is on a mission. Why? Because 54% of Black Americans don't have enough savings to retire. So in collaboration with big-name artists like Wyclef Jean, TIAA released Paper Right, new music inspiring a new financial future. With 100% of streaming sales going to a nonprofit that teaches students how to invest. Stream Paper Right now and help close the gap.
It is very curious, but I also think there might be some legal implications of it, right?
Yeah, like what do you think the problems, like off the top of your head, if you could, and if you can't, I can't think of anything, but like what issues do we run into if we go down this direction? What are maybe some like challenges, red flags? I don't know. You know what I mean? Like what are some of the concerns we have around this kind of model drift in the future, this direction as a whole?
I think there are a couple, right? I think that, again, like the legalities of it is something various governments around the world are trying to like resolve, right? Because I think the European Union have done an okay job of like getting ahead of it and trying to, stabilize things. I think whenever they did their GDPR, it was like, even though AI wasn't in the conversation, I think it was part of the thing that would help legalization of it, right? So it's to be seen in that aspect, right? How various governments decide to, create laws around these data, right? So like imagine if it becomes illegal to use, I don't know, George R.R. Martin's books to train a model, and then we find out that ChatGPT has been trained on George R.R. Martin's book. Like does R.R. Martin like have like a claim to it, right? So those are like things that we can't really predict. It's only wait till we see.
I know.
Yeah, but I think that the most dangerous aspect is that, in my personal opinion, if given the bells and whistles that everyone is throwing around, it's very essential that different groups of people are building these models, right? Because it's as dangerous as, a lot of people are saying it is, and only a select few of people are building these models. For all humanity, that's a problem, right? Like that to me is a red flag. Because, we all come from different experiences, different thoughts, right? So if you're building something that only a few groups of people can relate to or actually building, like that to me is more dangerous than any other.
Yeah. Yeah, no, 100% agree with you. And when you think about that, are you thinking more like kind of like ChatGPT and what OpenAI has going on, or like other aspects of AI as well?
All aspects, right? Because we've had, issues with like even things like self-driving cars, right? Like the next phase of self-driving cars, we've seen it get into a few accidents, right? Like what is happening over there, right? And it's not because maybe the engineers are incompetent per se, but we need multiple people to be able to see how that works, right? Obviously, like these large language models like ChatGPT, obviously you need like, hey, how is this working for every kind of scenario, right? But I think across the board, multiple people building all these algorithms together, as opposed to just a select few people putting this out into the world for the entire world to consume.
Yeah, 100% agree with you there. I think you're spot on that. Something that I'd love to ask you about is like, what role do you think like open source, like do you think open source could be a solution to that concern and that problem specifically? I've recently been seeing on Twitter, X, whatever, oh my gosh, I can't remember his name. Is it Ian, the head of AI at Meta?
Yeah, fun.
Yes. Oh my gosh, thank you. Totally spaced on his name there. But he was saying that he really sees, of course, Meta's been really big on pushing the whole open source thing for AI. And he says that he really believes that's the way the entire industry is going to go. I'd love to hear your opinions and thoughts on this, because of course we have these big guys. We have Google, closed source, OpenAI, it's closed AI. We have these big players and they got billions of dollars behind them. So a lot of people are like, they can't lose. And over at Meta, right, he's saying that he believes this very similar kind of thing happened with the architecture of the internet, where essentially everything eventually went to a lot of open source platforms that are, the code bases and the projects that we use to run the internet. But at the very beginning, it was like Microsoft and like Sun Systems and some other like, big players that people thought they were centralized and they weren't going to get usurped, but they did by open source. Where do you think that plays out in AI today and in the future?
So again, totally my opinion. I think that it's a Hail Mary. That would be the awesome, like the ultimate thing to have it open. I think the issue now is that like building AI models is expensive, right? I think that's something a lot of people gloss over, right? Like it's expensive. It's not like software, like, you can be a college student and then, create Facebook and it will go big, right? Like you can't be a college student and create like OpenAI unless you have a lot of money behind it. So that is the thing that I would love for it to be open source, right? But unless you get to a point where models are not as expensive as, because I don't think, I know Facebook has other revenue sources. That's why they can do all these open source models.
Right.
With OpenAI is like, that's how they make their money, right? Just hundreds of millions, if not billions, to build this product. Like, would you want to give it away for free? That is the, But I think it's eventually going to get there. But how quickly is what I'm not entirely sure.
That's a good point. And I think you bring up a good point of this is like how OpenAI makes the money. I think they just announced they crossed like $1.3 billion in annual recurring revenue or annualized, revenue. And like, it's not just that they're spending a lot of money, they're making a lot of money here. So it's not, it's like to get over that barrier to entry, you talk about moats in business and like, come on, that is of course you'll have the Facebooks and the Googles and maybe Apple and like those players that can do that. But like getting over the moat of OpenAI having $10 billion, making $1 billion plus a year and putting it into training these models, like it is not easy for, like you mentioned, it's not gonna be a guy like out of, college that creates Facebook and it goes viral because the barrier to entry is, $1 billion to train this thing, or, $100 million to train different aspects of the model. So very, very crazy. Good insights on that for sure. Something I'd love to ask you about specifically, sorry for the side tangent. Gotta get your view on what's happening. But something I'd love to ask you about with roboMUA is, what are some real world applications for, roboMUA's technology beyond just like beauty and fashion industries, which I know you've been doing a lot of? Like, what are some other real world applications people can look forward to?
Yeah, so there is other things that we've been exploring, other verticals that we've been exploring. I think the main issue is that like the data set of 100 skin shades is something that is almost non-existent, right? And I think this is like further down the line, but the concept of neuromorphic machines are super interesting, which is now a lot of researchers, particularly at Brown, are trying to figure out how to make machines see the way humans do, right? Because right now they don't really see. Computer vision algorithms are not really as neurological as be. So the researchers at the Searle Lab at Brown are working on that. So like, if that is the case, how do we make sure that these machines are seeing all humans under all lighting conditions, under all weather conditions, right? So take self-driving cars, right? Can a self-driving car or any autonomous vehicle identify like a dark-skinned person in the middle of the night with no proper street lights, right? Those are the conversations that we are having, right? So like these manufacturing autonomous vehicles, right? Like, can they identify human skin if there's like low lighting conditions, if there's a right? If there's like a blizzard, right? Like all those are the conversations that we are having. So I'm actually excited and to see where this goes.
Yeah, it's so fascinating. I really think you're like right on the cutting edge of such an interesting area. And of course, your company that you're working on right now, like so fascinating and so many cool use cases there. Something I would love to ask you as we're kind of wrapping up this interview is, what is some advice you feel like you could give to aspiring professionals in the AI space as they're kind of looking to get started? Maybe they're interested in starting their own companies. Maybe they're looking at getting jobs within AI. What's a piece of advice you feel like you could give to them?
So I think that finding community around AI, and I think a lot of times people just follow like very popular people in AI. I think you should find people who are doing what you aspire to do. So not necessarily people who work at like a particular company or doing, but like if they are doing what you're aspiring to do, because you can follow your journey to see how they got there, right? So like that to me is like the best advice. Like find someone who you think you can aspire to, who you're aspiring to, and just look up how they got there, right? So I used to follow, I still follow a lot of people on LinkedIn, and like I would follow people who would share the projects they're building on LinkedIn. And so like I would go through their post and go like very far down the line, like a year ago, 2 years ago, what kind of projects were they building, right? And like I just replicate that. So I'm like, okay, I can do like there's like a journey or step-by-step process to where they got to where they were. Right. And I also think just like diving in and building, I think a lot of people, they are not spectators, but they enjoy being spectators in this one. And I don't think like AI, whether you want to get a job or you're trying to build a startup, like you can be a spectator, right? Like you can't just be liking things on Twitter, like, okay, oh, this is what Facebook is. No, dive in, right? If Facebook launches a new open source, what is it about? Try to dive into it, right? Like if there's a new course online, if you can't take it, there's probably like information on YouTube you can find, right? Like diving in instead of just like waiting because you don't feel qualified enough or you don't think that you're good enough. Like just dive in, right? And then see what happens. So those are the two things I can say.
Oh my gosh. Okay, something you said I think is like some of the most fascinating advice I've ever heard, because it is something I was recently thinking about, and that was I was listening to some podcast and this guy was like quoting a bunch of like books he'd read by famous people, and I'm like, oh man, like that's such an interesting concept, like reading books by like the people. Of course, it's very common, right? You read the Steve Jobs autobiography or the Bill Gates or the Elon Musk or whatever. Like that, that's the thing. You look up to someone and you like their career path. You like go read their autobiography and what they did. What I was thinking about, because I really don't do that a lot, but I follow like a lot of podcasts, like of people that are like alive today talking about projects they've done in the past and things they've done. And I like the concepts, and so it's like, and I was thinking like, it's almost like my way of finding people I admire or like that I would like to emulate and listening to like what they're saying today. And I love that you had it kind of just like came full circle to me when you mentioned the LinkedIn thing. Like that is totally the modern way of doing what used to be reading like someone's autobiography. With AI today, things are changing so rapidly, and the people that are like pushing forward the progress, they're alive and they're in action right now. If you want to be in a specific space and you want to emulate that, like you don't have to wait till they write an autobiography or they die. Like look at what they're building today. And I love what you said about going to their LinkedIn, going back a year and looking at what projects they were. Everyone's building in public these days. Yeah. And what a fascinating, I absolutely love that. That's gotta be some of the best advice to aspiring people I've heard. I'm wanting to come into this space is like, find the people doing cool things. Look what they were posting a year ago. Look at what their career path took them. And of course, like follow them today because that's what everyone does. But like, look at historically what they've done. I love that. That's amazing. That's as good as you get to getting the inside scoop on the autobiography, 20 years ahead of time.
Exactly.
I love that. Hey, well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. It has been absolutely phenomenal. If people want to find out more about you and kind of, what you're working on, your company, maybe, companies want to test it out, try to figure out how to implement this, what's the best way for them to find you and roboMUA?
Yeah, definitely find me on LinkedIn, Emmanuel Acheampong, Acheampong. But you can also go to roboMUA.com. All our contact information is there too. Yeah, those are the two places I would highly recommend. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. To the listener, I'm going to drop a link in the show notes to roboMUA.com, so you can just grab it there and go check it out. Yeah, thank you so much for tuning in. To the listener, make sure to rate us wherever you get your podcasts, and have a fantastic rest of your day.